basis to ensure processes are effective, efficient, and predictable, and to promote fair and equitable application of laws, regulations, policies, and procedures. Treatment operations that are not included in the statewide general permit thus will force water purveyors to seek coverage for specific operations under individual NPDES permits throughout the state. This can be inefficient, but also raises costs of compliance issues for agencies. Furthermore, multiple regional boards will need to be involved in regulating discharges related to potable water, contradictory of the intent of the statewide general permit to be an all-inclusive regulatory authority to address water purveyors' discharges. In short, we believe the state board should be as inclusive as possible of de minimis discharges from water treatment operations that are intended to be covered under the statewide permit. Thank you for your time and consideration. We've been pleased to assist the state board in crafting a protective and practical permit for drinking water discharges and pledge to help our members understand it as you wish and also to comply with it. So we expect to work with our fellow associations and with your staff to actually achieve that.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
What de minimis discharge would not be covered by this permit?
I think there's just a conflict in that sentence in itself. If it's a de minimis discharge,
It would be covered.
it would be covered. If it would not have a threat.
Right.
Did you
If
want
it's
me?
filter backwash, it
Right.
wouldn't
Do
be.
you want
If
me to
it's
address
NTU,
Mr.
so-
Worley's issue?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, because it's a very important issue. So the initial draft permit that we issued to the public was not clear on what discharges from a water treatment facility would be authorized under this permit. After we did our stakeholder discussions, we saw that a lot of stakeholders did want this one-stop shop. So the draft permit that was issued for the October 21st workshop included discharges that were from a treatment system such as filter backwash. If you recall, the San Diego County Water Authority representative came in during our workshop and questioned if that filter backwash or discharges from a water treatment plant would actually fall under the definition of a low threat and under the scope of the mitigated negative declaration. So as Marley and Phil Wiles looked deeper into this, the decision was made to propose to remove filter backwash discharges. Renan has done further research on that, and US EPA does have guidelines. The issue on this is solely when that backwash water is discharged back into a water of the United States. If a water district can reroute that backwash water into either their headworks, which is the beginning of their treatment facility, or back into their offline reservoir and not discharge it back into a water of the U.S., they don't fall under the NPDES world. So we considered including this and taking it out, and this is where we have we've landed.
Thank you, Tim. All right. I don't see Mr. Warburton. So there we go. Oh, yes, come back. I'm sorry. It was on the same card, I think. I thought we'd have another card. Yes, now.
Good catch, Clerk.
Sorry.
Good
Mr.
work.
Sheffer, I didn't mean to make you wait the whole time. I could have brought you back at the beginning.
No, that's fine. I appreciate that. It gives me a
So I'm
chance.
so sorry.
Yeah. Thanks again to staff on the presentation. I guess some of the confusion is what is an offline reservoir?
Could you give your name, please?
Again, my name is Corey Schaefer with Santa Fe Irrigation District. And from my interpretation of it, it would be a terminal reservoir built specifically for the treatment plant that has limited watershed, does not spill, and the water is basically solely used for the treatment plant facilities. Would that be a correct definition for an offline reservoir?
What's in,
How would you
Right.
where does
provide
that fit in?
Okay.
Because you have because in your discussions, and in your presentation on your PowerPoint, you reference offline. So it would be nice to get some clarification on what that is.
So we're using the word offline reservoir as an example of a component that is either within the system or outside of the system that's used for the purpose of the system. Our definition of an offline reservoir or a storage facility where water goes back into before it re-enters the system is one that is not a water of the United States. If it's a water of the United States, it's an NPDES discharge in accordance with this permit.
So that's,
Renan, did I catch that?
yeah,
I
'cause
think the answer is yes.
yeah, so I guess the challenge with it, I think some of the reservoirs should technically be offline, but they're considered waters of the U.S. So what's the process whereby we can properly clarify an offline versus a water of the U.S. reservoir?
So the question's, what's the process to clarify if a water body is an offline reservoir or a water of the U.S.?
And the conflict that we have is we actually have permits with Division of Drinking Water, and that's included as part of our process. And so it's a permitted reuse under that process, but it's a little conflicting with this, and we just want to make sure that we're clear on what we're doing.
I understand. That is a site-specific determination that needs to be made on if that reservoir is a water of the U.S. We cannot make a blanket, have a blanket response.
Yeah.
No, I think what he was asking was how do you do that? And you do that through the regional board, and if you're,
Okay.
and if you have concerns about their decision, it can be brought up to us. But
All
we
right.
have to start with them.
Yeah, so I see where historically we've done that for 40 years. It's been included in our Division of Drinking Water permit as a reuse as part of the process. And so then the next step would be go to the local regional board for that clarification. Okay, thank you.
Sorry,
Okay.
make it complicated.
Yeah, it's funny because that relates to
That's
a
not-
question or just a clarification, because on attachment B, is the notice of intent. But in looking at it, it's not clear to me that, maybe it is, but that it needs to be mailed into not just the state board, but the applicable regional board? Or how does this
Only
work?
if you need to find out.
No, we're purposely having all applications sent to the state board. It is our intention that this permit is implemented through the Division of Water Quality at the state board.
Mm-hmm. And that makes sense, for centralized administrative efficiency. But doesn't it also make sense that the regional board is aware of all of the NOIs that have been filed so that they know what's going on in their region?
Absolutely, and we can include that in our internal process. I guess I'd like to look at it as we're all one water board, and any applications we get from a regional board, we will have to notify the regional board even to see what existing permits are out there and so forth.
Okay, good. I
So
just
we'll
want that.
incorporate that in the
Yeah.
internal process.
That's great. That gives me a great deal of comfort because I don't want to be administering this in a vacuum with the regional boards where these, they're looking at watershed plans. They need to know what's going on in their watersheds. Okay, thanks.
Right, we're counting on them knowing as part of this too, so. All right, other questions? We went through a lot of, I want to just echo, I know I won't be able to give you a fraction of the praise I want to give you because there's a whole room full of people waiting for our next item. But I know how much time, we'll have a short break. I realize how much time that you've all spent, and we've made you keep going out, but I think the back and forth, with everyone has led to a better permit and process, and we've gotten past that initial shock that drinking water can actually be a contaminant in different circumstances to critters, which is where we started with folks being surprised in some cases and not in others. So you've just done a good job, and I just really want to thank you and the rest of the team for all the time you've spent. And I want to thank all the players who've also spent time helping us make sure we have a permit that does, again, you can't get it perfect, but in the long run, it's going to save a lot of people a lot of time and be a more efficient use of resources and give folks more than they have right now on all sides. So I really do appreciate that. Does someone have a motion, or do you want to summarize what you think?
I think
those
staff
changes
has.
are?
I have been keeping track of what I think are the changes that you want, and I'm hoping somebody over there is spotting me to make sure that I'm not missing anything. But I have 4 changes thus far, including the one that I had initially given you at the conclusion of the staff presentation. That was on section 5 with receiving water limits. The next one that I have was, and I wasn't certain whether the board wanted to make a change to the reopener section to expressly refer to later TMDL reopenings. If so, Michael drafted some language that I can read now.
Go ahead, please read it.
Okay, you're interested in that? Okay, this would be on page 17 of the draft permit. It's section 7C1, reopener provisions. We would have a new paragraph C, and it would read, to include specific implementation provisions in attachment G for any existing or newly adopted TMDLs.
Okay.
Okay. Next, I have Diana's change that she came up with regarding the biologist certification issue. This is on page 10 of the draft permit. This is section, I don't have the larger, no, 2. I do have the larger section. Section 3E, subparagraph 3, qualified biologist certification following project completion. That's pure, okay. The sentence that begins, for drinking water system discharges, that's the second sentence. After, under this order, delete the words, or subsequently issued order. And then later in that sentence, delete and/or regional water board. And then put a period after discharges and get rid of whichever is sooner.
I'll just go ahead and read that statement. That statement would say, for drinking water system discharges, completion of the project is when the water purveyor ceases discharges from its drinking water system under this order, or when the State Water Board terminates NPDES permit coverage for the discharges. So we remove all reference to regional board permits.
Confuse people, okay.
And then finally, to address the question about making conservative assumptions when submitting their notice of intent as to what is and is not a water of the U.S., I would propose adding language to the notice of intent form. This is attachment B1. Under paragraph 7, receiving water information, currently it says name of all receiving water bodies and/or major downstream water bodies. I think that we can accomplish the purpose by adding a statement that says, note that identification of receiving waters does not necessarily constitute a formal finding that any specific water body is a water of the U.S.
Yeah, because it's not.
And that is all the changes that I heard, unless somebody heard something while I was scribbling.
Well, I just had a couple of other things. I think you clarified a couple of things, like the being open to other, not excluding other information on the site specific. I think that you clarified that. The drinking water system versus community water system, you clarified that. The other thing is, I do think whether it should go in a resolution or a direction from us, that you should undertake a program of outreach with the association partners or the environmental community, for that matter, if they're interested, to do webinars or presentations as time and money allow. But the webinars are always easy to do because you can do them from your desk. I think the education piece is a nice thing to, it doesn't go in the permit, but somewhere in the resolution that our intention is to do that with anyone who will give us a venue.
Very good.
Well, let me then go ahead and make a motion to adopt this item with the changes read into the record by Ms. Wood assisted by Ms. Messina, and with a direction to staff to coordinate with some of the stakeholders, especially the associations who spoke here today, on an outreach, education, webinar type effort in implementation of this permit.
Okay, and
Good. And the only clarifying statement I would make is that Ms. Wood did a great job reading in the amendments, but in the addition of the new subdivision C on the reopener, that it would renumber the existing C and D to D and E respectively.
Including any appropriate renumbering or grammatical type changes.
And
Thank you.
I would second the motion and just really thank everyone's hard work in calendar year 2014 of getting this from a great idea to a finished product. And it couldn't have been done without everyone's concerted effort. And really second also Board Member Dodek's emphasis on the importance of outreach and show our commitment, to really getting the word out and facilitating compliance with this permit, which really covers now this universe of discharges, and it's a great accomplishment, everyone.
And actually, one more important addition before you call for the vote, and that is, even though they're not here today, I want to especially thank the regional water boards, especially the
good,
San
thank you.
Francisco Bay
Especially
and
San
the Central
Francisco Bay.
Valley regional water boards, whose staff assisted in this effort, whose stakeholders participated in this effort, and was very patient with us in the entire process. So a special thanks to them as well.
Thank you.
It contributed substantively to the permit.
Anything on this side? Good. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? I don't hear them. Okay, that carries with all the instructions. Thank you all for the hard work. Thank you for the people who have another big item on the agenda for your patience, but I think we need a 10-minute break. We'll come back at 5 after 4.
You want to close the plant, don't you? You want to close the plant, don't you? I think you do give a shit about that. I hope you do, Dave, because I give a shit about that. I know you are. That's what I mean. I'm sending my 67th year, 27th year unpaid, and still unpaid. I just wanted you to know I'm an ally, not a problem. That's really important for you to know. Absolutely. We're not going to distract Larry from that.
We're in full battle already, and all the help we can get is but Larry and I don't say right now, you've got work to do.
I totally agree with you. I just don't have. But you're saying he already represents us in matters that are pending currently, like Carlsbad and others. And okay, I just okay, good. Okay, good. Okay, good. Okay. side by side.
We shut down.
We were there side by side with you.
That's your business.
Did you even know what we did there? I'm just curious. Did you bother to find out what we did? Because we did a lot. And I've been a warrior like you are for 27 years. I know we did, but my point is that all that crap I had to read of financial information, all the technical stuff I had to read. I just want you to know we're an ally. I just want you to know we're an ally. We're not the problem. We're part of the solution. Everyday friends. That's all. That's all. I'm doing this for free too for 27 years, and I feel that you've been one of the great men of this whole campaign. This whole.
No one does more than what they must. I'm focused.
Which is when I became a big fan of yours. And I've stayed really up on your whole career, and I respect you enormously for all you've done. And I get it. I just want you to know I totally respect what you've been doing all these years. That's right. I understand that too. Actually, I don't call him. He calls me because I have so many people locally that he needs to have support him, which we do. We supply all the ground troops. So I've been paying $100,000 a month for the last 2.5 years to fight Senator for India. I'd like you to know that, and I don't have that kind of money. I'll be broke in another year. And the truth is my staff knows, that's what it takes for you to be on this. That's how I am on the barricade with you, Dave. I got it.
Right now, keep it his ass.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough.
You understand?
I do indeed. I do indeed. I do indeed. I do indeed. I mean, I do respect you.
Even oh Lord, this has been a hard day. Sitting around is harder.
Oh, tough stuff.
We're going to be here for an hour and a half.
We'll be here till 7:30.
What?
We'll be here till 7:30.
7:30?
Yeah. Just kick back. It's hard work. You know, I know you're easy and cocktails.
Not at 4, but certainly by 7:30.
By 5. By 5.
Now 6.
Hi, Larry. Melissa Jones.
Well, gin and tonics these days.
You know, I just went down and looked like the cafeteria's closed.
Yeah, it is.
There is a drinking.
4:10. Oh, the flight? Yeah. All right. We'll get started in just a moment. Sorry it took longer. I know. I know I'm not on. I can't be on unless she turns me on. Yeah, if that's all right. Okay, you're on. All right. We're back. Sorry that took longer. It's been a long day. We're continuing to work on our time estimates. This was another day where we got the time estimates wrong for a variety of the many things we had on the agenda, so my apologies to those of you who are going to be having a very late day and spent more hours with us on a drinking water permit than you probably thought you would need to. It's hard to gauge how long an agenda is going to take, but it's all very, very important. So we're at item number 12. Mr. Howard, are you going to introduce it, or is John?
I will introduce it. A couple of things that I just wanted to say before we jump into the item. First off is that I want to give a special thanks to the Nuclear Review Committee, the folks who volunteered to help us oversee this contracting effort, and they've put in a lot of work over the last few years, and I wanted to have my personal thanks to them. Next, I wanted to touch bases on what we are and aren't doing today. Today, we are going to receive a report from Bechtel Engineering that we had contracted with them to produce, which will be looking at the feasibility and cost associated with different technologies for Diablo Canyon. We are not choosing any of those technologies, and we're not making any decisions today. The purpose of today was to hear from them and from the interested public on the technologies, and then the staff will be looking at that information, also on all the written information that was submitted to us on this item, and listening today. And we will then endeavor to go back and develop a list of options that we will present, put out for public comment and present to the board for their deliberation at a future meeting. That meeting will be a decisionary meeting, because we'll be getting direction. That's not really a word, but I can't think of the right word. From you all, and at that point, since there is only one nuclear power plant, it will become a quasi-judicial action and have to have ex parte communication issues come up. And so for this meeting, we didn't want to raise that curtain, so we're not asking for any direction or decision from you, but at a future meeting, we will be doing that. Our plan is to put out a list of options for the board to consider early next year. I don't have an exact date. It depends on all that we hear today and think about, and comments and concerns that we hear, and then we will put that together for your consideration.
All right, and when will the ex parte curtain fall so that
When
we can
we put
only
that
speak
out.
here? When you put out the
options.
options paper.
Is
All
that
right.
correct, Mr. Lawfer?
Yeah, it will come into being once that notice is issued.
Once the notice of the meeting is issued.
Yes. And so given that the lateness of the hour, I would make an option that we could dispense with the staff report. It's not very long, but it kind of covers the history a little bit of why we're here. It's only about 5 minutes, but if you'd like, we can dispense that.
Given that we have about an hour or maybe a little more of presentations, and we've had folks asked to be able to do some longer ones, I think the 5 minutes overview is good, because we do have people listening, not necessarily the folks who have, the hardy souls who have stayed with us this afternoon and will be staying with us for hours, but people who are just listening over the web. I just think there's a piece of what we do that's about education and illumination that's important.
Okay.
So then our task, should we choose to accept, which we have accepted by being here, is largely to take this in and listen and ask questions.
That's correct. That is your task today.
And that would also make it faster. Our goal is to listen to the people who are here, primarily.
That is exactly right.
Open mind.
What we would ask of you is that you listen to the presentations that are made, and the comments that are made, and any questions you have about that material that you ask them, and then you keep this all in mind as we develop our recommendations for you.
Okay, great.
And with that, I'm going to turn this over to to our capable staff that I don't think I thanked when I thanked the committee member, but at every one of those committee members, these folks, committee meetings, these folks were here too, and they put in a lot of effort to get this together. So with that, Shuka?
Good afternoon, Chair Marcus, board members. My name is Shuka Rastagarpur. I'm an environmental scientist in the Ocean Standards Unit, Division of Water Quality. I'm going to be introducing this item by presenting a very brief background on the policy of the once through cooling policy, and then presenting a brief overview of the special studies report that's going to be presented to you in more specifics after my presentation. It's not working. So this, on May 2010, the State Water Resources Control Board adopted the statewide water quality control policy on the use of coastal and estuarine waters for power plant cooling, also known as the once through cooling policy. This policy was established to implement Federal Clean Water Act Section 316B, which requires that the location, design, construction, and capacity of cooling water intake structures to reflect the best technology available for minimizing adverse environmental impact. This policy is implemented through the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permits. No. Low battery.
No, it's a brand new one.
Maybe we should get a different model.
Oh, do I point? Oh, no, what? This like previous one. What do I? Okay, there. Okay, thank you. So the intent of this policy is to eliminate the use of once through cooling systems for power plants that withdraw coastal and estuarine waters for cooling purposes. This policy ensures that the beneficial uses of coastal and estuarine waters are protected and that the electrical power needs of the state are also met. The once through cooling water withdrawals are of concern because they cause adverse impacts to larger aquatic organisms by getting trapped against the facility's intake screen called impingement, or causing smaller forms of marine life going through the screens and getting trapped within the facility called entrainment. This policy applies to 19 power plants, totaling an average seawater intake of about 18 billion gallons per day, 2 of which are nuclear power plants, one being the San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station owned by Southern California Edison, and the Diablo Canyon Nuclear Power Plant owned by Pacific Gas and Electric Company. Since the adoption of this policy, 6 facilities or individual units have come into compliance, eliminating about 3.8 billion gallons of seawater intake per day. This policy has very specific provisions for nuclear facilities that is highlighted in Section 3D of the policy. The reason for this is because previous studies conducted for these nuclear facilities had variable cost estimates, and so the intention of this exercise was to conduct the special studies in order to narrow the cost and to provide a clear estimate. The policy requires owners or operators of the nuclear facilities to conduct the special studies investigating alternatives for compliance with the policy and investigating the ability to achieve a 93% intake reduction of seawater intake, which has been demonstrated to be feasible by a closed cycle wet cooling system. The policy requires an independent third party with engineering experience with nuclear power plants to conduct the special studies, and Bechtel Power Corporation was selected as the consultant. A review committee was convened per the policy to provide oversight with the conduction of the special studies, and the members of the review committee included representatives of both utilities, staffs of the state and regional water boards, non-governmental organizations, and the appropriate state agencies. The policy deadline for this report was in October 2013. However, per public comments that were received to the review committee, the need for additional assessments were required. And so per Water Board approval, the deadline was extended to allocate time for the additional assessments. And so these were then later added into the final report as an addendum. The final special studies report being presented to the board today will only cover the Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant. And that is because the San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station announced its plans to retire back in June 2012. And therefore, the special studies did not continue for this facility. State Water Board staff is currently working with Southern California Edison on ensuring that all components of the policy is being met while San Onofre is undergoing its decommissioning process. For overview of the Nuclear Review Committee, this committee was created per the policy, and so it was subject to the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act, and therefore all the meetings were open to the public and noticed at least 10 days in advance. 16 public meetings were held between March 2011 and April 2014. All working products of the committee included documents submitted by the public were posted online on the program webpage so that all these materials would be available to the public. The review committee was tasked to generate a scope of work that outlined criteria to be used by Bechtel when conducting the special studies. And so the criteria checklist was used for Bechtel to conduct an efficient assessment of the available technologies. The special studies report was split into two different phases. The first phase included a general assessment criterion where these included factors such as engineering, construction, and operation assessments of the selected technologies, and cost was not considered a factor for feasibility in phase one. So the technologies that passed phase one were then moved on to phase two, where the assessment for whether a Nuclear Regulatory Commission approval was required, and also required a generation of a detailed cost schedule and design for each technology. Although this is an information item, we notice an opportunity for the public to comment. The notice was released on September 26, 2014, and the comments were due to the clerk of the board by November 4th, 2014 by noon, and so it was roughly a 30-day plus comment period. And that concludes my presentation.
Great. Thank you. Scared me when you turned it off that something else had happened. Thank you for that. I know that relies an awful lot of work. The next on the agenda is the special studies presentation by Bechtel. Estimate is 25 minutes.
Good afternoon to the board.
Afternoon.
Madam Chairman.
Or just be close to it. You need to pull the mic close to your mouth or it
Okay.
doesn't. They clip this to me because I just can't do
All
it.
right. Is that better? Can you hear me okay?
That is better.
My name is Dan Williams. I'm project manager for Bechtel, responsible for the study. As was mentioned, we were awarded this joint utility once-through cooling study following a competitive bid process. The study involved an independent technical assessment of technologies that could be used to address the once-through cooling at Diablo Canyon. Today, we will summarize the results of that study, both the technical assessment, the cost, and schedule that we determined. The agenda, so I need to an introduction, speak to phase one, which was looking at what was viable options. Phase 2 addressed more detailed the engineering for those viable options along with cost and schedule estimates. And after we completed that, we were asked to look at a second set of options looking at the south parking lot. So we'll summarize that and then go over the resulting schedule and durations for each of those options were they to be implemented, followed by a summary of our cost. Okay, the introduction. Again, we awarded this work in August, and our mission was to develop conceptual designs for these technologies to a level that would support generation of a schedule associated with the construction approach that we defined and ultimately the resulting cost for those options. Our study team included engineering, led by Doug Dismukes, will be speaking, construction, our estimating professionals, and those groups are represented here today. Doug, our project engineer, 41 years of Bechtel experience. I have with me, sitting in the rear, Natasha Jones, our cooling tower specialist, 12 years of experience. Clint Lamberson, our construction manager, 41 years of construction experience with Bechtel. And Alex Utt is our estimating lead, 29 years with the company, 15 of those years involved in producing estimates. Additional resources that were engaged in this study include our environmentalists and permitting specialists, our scheduling and planning resources, and our licensing staff. I do want to stress that this study we did as an independent contractor, independent from the utility. The results that we are expressing to you today are our own, okay, that we have, again, developed independently. So I just want to emphasize that. Our work scope and direction came from the committee. Okay. We were contracted to the utility, but our actual direction on scope and questions came from the committee. So November 2012, we completed phase 1, followed with phase 2 middle of last year, and as was reported in September, issued our final report that included the south, we referred to the south parking lot study. The basis of our effort, again, independent as directed by the committee. We did go to the utility for information, but it was information that was then used to perform our assessment. We did have the utility review some of our early drawings before submittal for security reasons, but that was it. There was no direction that came as a result of that review. In completing our effort, we are giving the results of those assessments, but we are making no recommendations or taking no position as to which of these technologies should be implemented. So with that as an overview, I'll turn it over to Doug Dismukes to speak to the technical assessments.
Madam Chair and committee, it's good to speak with you. As Shuka indicated, the phase 1 study was basically to evaluate the technologies that that the review committee had. Say again? Oh, okay.
You have to roll it. No? It's a different one?
Oh, wrong one. Hold on.
All right. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Technology.
It's just we've been going through this all day long. It's
Yeah,
not,
technology. The technologies that are on this slide were the technologies that the review committee had requested we look at.